All right, so we're going to continue after making the step to creating an interaction. Now, interaction typically involves one or more parts. And in this case, there is no more than one part. So we don't need the interaction module. We'll use it another time. We'll move on to the probably one of the most important modules, which is load. In this module, you can specify the loading, and you can also specify the boundary condition. So let's start with specifying the boundary condition. I'll click on that icon and say create. And it's asking me what type of a boundary condition do I want. I certainly want a mechanical boundary condition, and it's going to be one on displacements and rotations. And I'm going to pick the bottom edge. It's asking me select the region of the boundary for the boundary condition, and I'm going to just select the bottom edge like that. I'm going to click done, at which point it will ask me what are the boundary conditions. So it's asking me, do you want to restrain U1, which is displacement along the x-axis, U2, which is displacement along the y-axis, and UR3, which is rotation. Now, truly speaking, all I need is U1 and U2, because the elements that I'm going to use are not going to have rotational degrees of freedom. But if I go ahead and click UR3, it's not going to be an error. It will just continue to ignore that because the elements don't have rotation degrees of freedom. Whether I just click U1 or U2 or all three of them, it's going to give me a fixed boundary condition there at the base. So I'll go ahead and provide that boundary condition. And as soon as I do that, you see those little symbols have appeared at the bottom indicating U1, U2, and UR3 are restrained. Now, we need to apply the loading. For that, I'm going to go to the load manager. I'm going to create a load. It's going to ask me what kind of a load do you want to create. So somehow the step that I had created did not get, oh, there it is. The step is just fine. So all I need to do is create a load. Sorry, I had to go back and check something. I'm going to create a load in step number 1. There we go. And it's going to ask me what kind of a load, mechanical load, and that's what I want. Is it a concentrated force? Not quite. I really don't want a moment, a pressure, don't want a shell edge load. What I really want is a surface traction. So I'll select that, at which point it'll ask me which is the surface that you want to apply this traction to. And I'm going to click on it right there. There we go. That top edge has been selected. It's just a little slow, looks like. After which I'm clicking done. And now I'm ready to specify the traction. So I can specify the traction distribution to be uniform or some other variation that is defined by the user. The traction can be a general traction or a shear traction. In this case, I want a shear traction. It wants the vector for the projection, so I can just specify what that direction is going to be. It wants the first point for the direction vector. I want a traction that goes from here to here. So I'm just selecting the two ends of the vector that define the direction of the traction. And that's been done. At which point I'll specify the magnitude as 1. And the traction is defined per undeformed area. We'll worry about this definition of undeformed and deformed a little bit later. Right now the traction is defined per unit undeformed area. I'll click OK. And I expect to see my load appear on the top. And you're seeing it right there. That's the traction of 1 KSI that has been applied. So the loading has been created. At this point, I'm ready to submit this job for analysis. But before I do that, I need to figure out my finite element mesh. So let's do that.